We're going to start the next few classes, a little series of Pesach / Haggadah / Seder insights. And it's going to take multiple classes to go through it, and we definitely won't finish regardless, but bear with me. I also want to point out, I hope none of you checked the WhatsApp during Seder, but I did put on the group a lot of general knowledge that you should be reviewing now. Things like the 4 songs, the 4 expressions, the plagues, the 15 steps of the Seder, and including this slide right here. This was the first one I want you to know. There's 5 names for this holiday. What are they? Anyone want to help out?
Chaga Pesach.
Pesach.
Chaga Matzos.
Good. You're in order so far. How did you know what I put? What's next?
Scripted. Passover.
That's the translation for Pesach. That's what he's saying. My next one. Zman Chedeseinu. The time of our liberation. It's also called Chag HaGeula, which is another way of saying this, because redemption. Okay. And Chag HaAviv, you said, very good.
Yes.
And one more, it's in the Haftarah is mentioned, and this is a very, very important theme of Pesach, that it's considered the birth of the Jewish nation, the birth of the Jewish people, and that's how the Navi describes it. Like, we were born Pesach. It's really all our birthday. So I want you to remember these 5 names, the translation, and the Hebrew as well, for the general knowledge quiz that will be also towards the end of the semester before the Pesach break. Be one of our quizzes. Okay? So everyone got the 5 names? Pesach, usually translated as Passover, very famous, but it also could mean he had mercy on us, Rashi believes.
Is this like WhatsApp chat?
Yeah, I did. I posted it. Okay. The Chag HaMatzos because of the main mitzvah of matzah. Zman Chedeseinu because of the theme of the holiday, which we already discussed in one of the classes, right? About freedom and true freedom. And Chag HaAviv, all the biblical holidays, or most of them, the 3 primary ones, are also connected to the harvest cycle, because it's all about bringing holiness and connecting to Hashem in our lives, in our mundane lives, in our business, in our family, right? So we have to bring the festivals are specifically connected to these different stages in the harvest and collection and so on when you store it. Okay, and latest on Yisrael is when, historically, that's when the Jewish people really begin with the Exodus. Okay. A little anecdote, a great one actually, about the 2 most popular names of Pesach. We all call it Pesach, right? Everyone knows Pesach, Passover, Pesach. That's the name that the Jews always call it. What does the Torah actually call it? Chag HaMatzos. The main, it is described at once, but the main name that it refers to this holiday in the Torah is Chag HaMatzos. Okay? What's with that? Why do we call it Pesach, and why does the Torah call it Chag HaMatzos? Okay? The question is clear. Everyone with me? Why would the Jews be referring to it always as Pesach, and the Torah refers to it specifically as Chag HaMatzos? What's behind that? So the story goes that there was once a little scuffle, a disagreement that turned a little bit heated in the town of Berdichev. Can you imagine? In the town where Levi Yitzchak Berdichev was rabbi, and he comes out of shul once, and there's this whole argument going on, and somebody said something really not nice about his opponent. He said, like, I don't know what he called him. Can't be too explicit on the air, right?
You're not cool.
But he said something really nasty. Just as Levi Yitzchak Berdichev walked through the door, and everyone froze. And that was, how's he going to react? And the Berdichever responded instantly. He's like, "You realize what you're doing? You are accusing Hashem of not wearing kosher tefillin." And everyone like, "What? We're in the middle of a fight over here. Where did that come from?" And he said, "Don't you know that whenever Hashem gives us a mitzvah, He does it Himself?" He knows he's not a hypocrite. In some spiritual sense, he fulfills whatever mitzvah he tells us to do. Now, what is written in our tefillin? Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, right? The way I translated that is, note to self, there's no reality independent of God. Right? Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. What is in Hashem's tefillin? So the Talmud shares. It says this, the opposite. Umika Amcha Yisrael, Goy Echad Ba'aretz. It says how the Jews are uniquely special amongst all the nations. They're the Goy Echad Ba'aretz. They're the only nation that's like so precious to Hashem. So the B'ditchever said, you're going around saying this Jew is nasty, is bad, right? Is not special and precious. And that's the opposite of what Hashem's tefillin is. You're saying he's wearing false tefillin? How could you talk like that? This is the B'ditchever's reaction. And then he started to bring with everyone around him. He started to discuss and say, you see, it's the same idea as in the tefillin is also behind the names of Pesach. What do you see in the tefillin? We focus and praise like Hashem's uniqueness. Hashem is the only reality. And so we're talking about the oneness of Hashem. And Hashem focuses on our oneness. So the same thing you have in the names of Pesach. We're focusing on what Hashem did for us. How he finally, gave a final plague to the Egyptian firstborn. And through that, we were finally able to leave. He released us from bondage, and he spared our families totally that night. And we're focusing on that, what he did for us. And what do we call it? We call it Chag HaMatzos. I'm sorry, what does the Torah call it? That's what we call it. We call it Pesach, because that's what Hashem did for us. What about the Torah? The Torah calls it Chag HaMatzos. The festival of the matzos. Why? What's the matzos symbolize? That reminds Hashem how we lechtech achrei bamidbar we bring in the Haftarah. We followed Hashem into the wilderness without even taking the time to prepare our food properly. We were so trusting. We were so loyal. We had so much faith in Hashem. We went out into our wilderness. That's pretty dangerous. That takes a lot of commitment and trust. And this is what Hashem wants to focus on our merit, how we were so devoted and so dedicated. So this is how the B'ditchever explained this dynamic, why we call it Pesach. We're focusing on what Hashem did for us. And the Torah calls it Chag HaMatzos, focusing on what we did, how we were loyal to Hashem. And of course, this is not just in our marriage between us and Hashem, but this is a beautiful message and lesson for everyone in any relationship, and especially in a marriage. You always want to be focusing on what the other one does good and how grateful you should be. That's the biggest blessing in life. In marriage especially, but in every relationship. To focus on the things, not what they didn't do, what they did wrong. No, what they did for you and what you appreciate. Okay, let's keep calm and Seder on. Moving to Kiddush. So,
I spoke to you about that.
Any of you started learning this part of the notes in the Haggadah? So one of the questions the Rebbe addresses, I'm selecting a few of the points, and I'm going to go with you in the classes. Obviously, I'm not going to do everything, or else we really won't get anywhere. But some major points. There's a big question. What the first step in the Pesach 15 steps of the Seder is Kaddish. We make Kiddush, but that's not a unique Pesach step. We do that every Shabbos and Yom Tov. Every meal. What's the big deal what's special about the Kiddush on Pesach night? So the Rebbe brings multiple answers. What do you want to share?
I was going to say that the Kiddush is done by everyone.
Okay, we're going to get to some of that. So the first one is, tonight you cannot do it on bread. Usually, if you don't have wine, it's better to do it on wine. But halachically, there's a lot of times you could do it on bread as an alternative. But tonight, by Pesach, it has to be wine. Why? Because it's also the first of the 4 cups. You can't use a matzah. You can't use a matzah. That's another discussion. how they deal with that. But the first thing is you cannot use matzah. That's why it's in quotation marks, not literally bread. Another thing is everybody, because it's the 4 cups. Again, since it's one of the 4 cups, you have to say it and drink yourself. Now, the saying is also not an obligation, but it's also a custom, and it's a praiseworthy to actually say the kiddush yourself, because you want to drink your own cup. You can't someone cannot drink from you. Someone could say the words for you, and you could say Amen. Shemea ka'oineh. Halachically, if you hear someone say something and you both have in mind to fulfill your obligation, that means you intend through hearing it to fulfill as you said it, and the person reciting it has in mind that your hearing it should also fulfill the obligation, then it works. It's as if you said it. But that's only for words. For drinking, it doesn't work. You have to drink it yourself. It's also a concept of saying your own kiddush anyway.
Can you do that without any?
Technically, yeah. That's what the Chazar Hashatz originally was. But these days, if you could read, it's better to read in English than to hear from someone. So it's not really done these days because you could read something. But if somebody was totally illiterate in every language, then you would technically be able to just hear someone and have in mind.
What if he was lazy?
What
if he was lazy?
No. Okay. Another concept that's brought, because it's one of the 4 cups, so it says it's even in Shulchan Aruch that you should try to drink wine even if it causes you pain and discomfort. It says the story about a rabbi who would have headaches for many weeks afterwards, but he would still do it every year. Another unique feature of the Kiddush by Pesach night is that it can't be done early. Generally, it's a beautiful way to show your devotion and appreciation for mitzvahs and Shabbos, that you do it at the first opportunity. And a lot of communities, especially in the summer and starting now already, to change the clock, they'll start to do the Kiddush earlier. And you totally could fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush then. You could start Shabbos earlier and make Kiddush earlier. Shema might be another story. We'll have to do it later because they do it, and the Chabad is not so common for different reasons. But we're not against it. You could do it. But Pesach, everyone has to wait till after 3 stars come out to do Kiddush, because it's one of the 4 cups. And the 4 cups, the mitzvah, the rabbinic mitzvah of the 4 cups has to be in the same time when there's a mitzvah to eat matzah. And the mitzvah to eat matzah begins after the 3 stars come out. So the Kiddush, the first step of the Seder, has to be after the 3 stars are definitely out. This is despite what was mentioned before, that you don't want to delay and do things. You want the kids to be involved, and you don't want to waste time. You try to prepare before, but you still cannot start early. And one more point: it's a really special thing to do the whole cup. You want to drink the entire cup, because of the mitzvah of the 4 cups. There's a concept of drinking the whole cup, which is, by the way, practical tip. There's a reason why you want to have a cup that has the right size, but it doesn't have to be so big, because you're going to do at least 4 cups, and you want to try to drink the whole thing. And you also want to be present. We're going to have another class about that, about chumras and balancing chumras and stringencies. Working on another class for another day. But you want to have a cup that can contain the right amount, but there's a concept of drinking the whole cup. So keep that in mind.
Did I say the Kaddish?
No. This is also very not it's a real book, by the way. I have it at home, or I used to have it. Kids might have shredded it already. Okay. But yeah, do not challah in a crowd of matzah making. It's not an advertisement, but it's working. But it's a good challah. If you don't have a challah trip on a rainy day, you can use this book. Okay. Now we move on from Kiddush to the Seder plate. First, I want to identify all the items, and I want you to remember them. It's also the general knowledge, by the way, so get these. It'll be on the quiz. I might ask you to fill in all these blanks. So on the top right, you have the zraya, the shank bone and the neck bone. Then you have on the left top the beitza, or beya, the egg. Marar is in the middle, the center. This is our custom. There are many different communities with different variations. Maybe I'll show you that in another class. Then we have under the maror, or to the right, is the charaises, a special dip that we use. And then you have the karpas, a certain vegetable that's on the bottom left. And then at the bottom center is called the chazeres, some more maror, which we'll discuss in a moment what all these are for. But everyone got the names? Right? Zraya, Beitza, maror, karpas, charaises, and chazeres. I want you to know what they are and where they go on the Seder. You guys are going to be in your homes, wherever you're going to be, in your families, in your communities. You're the Yeshiva Brachrim. You guys have to be the one who's telling everybody the right way to do things, the best way to do things. If you're here, you're going to know these things. You're the Yeshiva Brachrim. They expect you to have a Dvar Torah. They expect you to have the knowledge. So digest everything. Okay. Yeah. Pesach, it's okay if you have more than 4 questions. Well, let's go on. Now I want to discuss the background and why we do all these things. What are they about? So the first 2 are corresponding to two offerings that were brought on Pesach. There was a carbon Pesach, which had to be roasted. So we take a roasted food. Right? It's just a remembrance, but the custom is to take something that's a little bit like roasted. And then we use, for the carbon chagiga, it was another carbon, but that one was allowed to be cooked. So the custom became, take an item that's cooked to symbolize the differences between the sacrifices. One of them had to be eaten roasted, and one of them was permitted to be cooked. So we use a cooked egg for the cooked item, and a roasted, like burnt, like neck bone or shank bone for the carbon Pesach symbolism. Now, why specific? But it could be anything.
That's like
Carbon chagiga. Now, really, you could just have any 2 tafshilin to remember the 2 karbonis. That's the general idea, but it evolved particularly to have these particular items for these reasons. And more insight that's brought is because the Zraya is called, it reminds us of the outstretched arm, which is the expression used in the Torah when it says Hashem saved us with his outstretched arm, punishing the Egyptians and saving us. It uses that term. So we use a Zraya. And the Beitza is in Aramaic, it's called Beya, and it's like spelled like Ba, the same word, the Ba Rachmana Lemifrach Yasana. It's in Aramaic, it means because we need Hashem to save us from this long, bitter exile. Again, just like he took us out of Egypt, we want to take us out of Galus. So we use an egg specifically as a cooked item because it has that connotation in the meaning of the word. We're going to learn a lot about this, that every little detail in the Seder, there's all different customs and little details in it. They all have a lot of symbolism and deep insights and meanings, which we'll do a lot more in other classes. Yeah, see the words there? The Bar Achmana Lemifrach Yasan. Plus. That's what it means. Hashem needs to redeem us. The maror is a bitter herb, is linked to the phrase Vayimaru es chayehem, and the Egyptians embittered their lives. This is the beginning of the book of Exodus, describes their suffering. Also the name Miriam, she was born at exactly that time when the decree started against the Jewish boys and the slavery intensified, and that's why she was named Miriam, the same word, Vayimaru. That's the idea of having a bitter herb. The charaises, there's 3 reasons. I put them very briefly here. There's 3 reasons for the special dip. Remember all 3. Number 1, zechelatit, the mortar. It's supposed to look like cement, like mortar, because the slavery was mainly building and making cement. And I don't know if they did the pyramids. There's a lot of discussion back and forth about that, if that exactly was done by the Jews, but they were building things. That's what the Torah says. The second opinion is it's supposed to be like not just a mixture of fruits and some kind of mush, but it's various different fruits. And according to the second way, it's supposed to use specifically different fruits that the Jews are compared to throughout the Tanakh. And apples, even in the story of Mitzrayim, it says under the apple tree there were special miracles, but all different fruits that the Jews are compared to in Shirashim, in different places in the Torah. And this is the idea of the dip that's supposed to remember all the different poetic, like descriptions that Hashem, affectionate descriptions that Hashem uses for us. Because of like where his apple pie, where his cheesecake, I don't know, different fruits. Okay. And then the last thing is a very interesting concept. It says that the maror has a very weird kind of like worm or parasite or some kind of dangerous little, very, very microscopic, harmful thing that very rare, but sakana is very serious. So it says to make a vessel that it shouldn't harm you, you dip it in this dip, which includes some alcohol, which is supposed to neutralize the potential danger of this larva called a kappa. We don't know exactly what this creature or this dangerous like larva is exactly, but we know it's like very small. And even though it's not kosher, it's not a problem of kosher because it's like probably could be dead and nullified a lot more. But sakana is more serious. Danger is even more strict than kosher sometimes. So the Talmud mentions this that we want to dip the maror into charesis.
Rabbi, I have a question for you. What is like the dip out of?
So use basically walnuts, apples, and then there's a lot of different customs after that with some wine.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. The main ones are walnuts, apples, and some wine mixed in. Some add the wine later. We'll learn the customs exactly, but it has to be ground up and mixed. And a lot of people, different things. People like the idea of different communities. They add various fruits that the Jews are compared to. Pears and this. The Sephardic have a lot of interesting things, and it's all beautiful. Yeah.
Dates. Would you be able to also put this slide on the?
Yeah. Remind me after. Sure. And let's continue.
This?
Great idea. Harpas, the Talmud says, is a vegetable that we use, but it's like specifically in the word also alludes to the slavery of the whole nation, 600,000. Samach means 60 maris, like times 10,000 people were suffering in slavery.
My family uses, like, for karpas, use celery.
Yeah, not for now. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be. I didn't say what it is. It's all called karpas. Karpas just means like the vegetable. And the bottom we have Eirech again. We have more maror. Here we have more maror because we're going to use it a second time. We're going to learn about why. But we do a sandwich and we do twice. We do maror as its own step in the seder, and then afterwards we do a sandwich of matzah and maror together. So we're going to have twice the amount of maror that we need for the seder, and 2 points in your seder plate. That's the basic background of the Seder plate. Let's get a little mystical. You ready? Try to know this also. I could post this too.
Uh-huh.
This is, you see, it resembles the outline of the spheres. Chesed is the right top. Gvura is the egg. Tiferes, mercy is the maror. Associated with maror, I just see the word mercy. Maybe it's not interesting. Okay, maror. But we'll maybe discuss more in another class the connection. Chareses is netzach, determination. Haid corresponds to the vegetable. Chazeres is yisoid. And where's malchus? The plate. There's supposed to be a plate under it.
Silver.
Or under the old matzah even. That represents malchus, which is the receptacle for all the energy of all the spheres. So this is the Seder plate.
Where it should be a silver top.
Again?
I heard Rabbi Solomon said it should be a silver. The Cairo should be made out of silver.
Yeah, there's a discussion about that. It's brought. Okay. Besides, he says besides by the Rebbe, other people wouldn't use in front of the Rebbe, but he says others should.
Yeah, my family uses it.
Okay.
The Rebbe did that? The Rebbe did something?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Hasidim got him one. Like, oh,
Not so simple. So we'll get to it. Okay. Isn't it a mitzvah every day to mention Exodus? What's unique about Pesach? Every day. So here also the Rebbe gives 6 answers. Okay? 6 answers. What's special about the obligation? It's one of the biblical mitzvahs that apply the first night of Pesach. Okay? Number 1. It says you have to remember the Exodus every day. But some say it doesn't have to be verbal to fulfill the daily obligation. You just have to, if you think about it, it's enough. But by Yetzias Mitzrayim, it says, it says multiple times to talk about it. So that is already special in the way we fulfill the mitzvah. It has to be, you have to speak about it audibly, verbally. Number 2, just have to mention it every day. Just mention the concept that Hashem took us out of Egypt. It's brought in halacha that you could fulfill it in Shema. You just mention, I am God who took you out of Egypt. That phrase enough. Or not, you talk about the song of the sea, which you say in the prayers. That is all enough. You already mentioned Exodus, but on the night of Pesach, the first night of Pesach, it's a big biblical mitzvah to say all the details of the story. And even more, like we'll learn about soon. Another point, every day you could just mention it yourself or think about it yourself. For sure, if you think about it, it's by yourself. But even if you talk about it, you don't need someone else to be there. You could just say the words, like we say by the end of davening, and doing Rabbeinu Tam. But on Pesach night, it says it's supposed to be a dialogue. The child ask, and if you don't have anyone, if you don't have a child that says you should do it with somebody else, if possible, you should do it with somebody asking. And if not, then you'll still do it audibly, but you can't fulfill this thing. Yeah, okay. You still have the question answer format. It also adds to the discussion when you do it in a question answer format. Okay. The daily requirement to mention or remember the Exodus is not counted, according to most opinions, as one of the 613 mitzvahs. There are certain things that are like obligated even by the Torah, something you have to do, but it's not counted in the mitzvahs as its own mitzvah. And it's more like some would link it to this, that the main mitzvah is Pesach night, and every day you have to connect to that. But the mitzvah that's counted is the mitzvah to discuss the Exodus on Pesach night. Also, the mentioning that's required daily, it only, according to some opinions, it's not going to be after Mashiach comes. But the night of Pesach is going to even be an obligation after the Messianic era. And also, we said before you have to say the whole story. But what if you said the whole story? The night of Pesach, it's a mitzvah even to keep doing it the whole time as much as you can, to farbring about it and inspire yourself and excite yourself and sing about it and talk about it. That night, it's very, very special mitzvah, and it gives you tremendous spiritual benefits just talking about it as much as possible. Even more after the story, go chew it over again, go from another angle, another perspective, more background, more medrashim. It's a mitzvah. Okay. A very nice little quote the Rebbe brings in the Agada, the beginning, from the Mariel. Yehei kol adam chara be'ema l'kayim ma'im chacham shetiknu mitzvahs haseder v'Agada. From the Mariel, Zarishain. A big paisik from the Rishonim. And he brings this quote already. This is a good 700 years ago. He says you should be very, very in a state of awe when it comes to all the customs of the Seder night. The word charedim means those that are very careful with mitzvahs. Is this word. Like l'kayim, to fulfill the sayings of our rabbis that they instituted the guidelines for the structure, for the Seder of this night. Should not treat matters lightly. Even if things seem like they're not important. What's the difference? You do it this way, do this first, say this, don't say this. Should not go that path. You're making a terrible misconception. There is nothing that doesn't have layers and layers of meanings and insight. You should not take things lightly. I'll share with you one story that we usually share almost every year in my house that happened with the Shpala Zayda that illustrates this idea. I told you the Shpala Zayda is my great-great-great-grandfather 9 generations ago. So, one year by the Pesach Seder, as is customary in many Jewish homes, a young child announces the steps of the Seder and explains the instructions, what you're supposed to do. Because one of the things you really want to do Pesach night is get the children involved. The main theme of Pesach night, the Seder, is giving over Judaism to your next generation, to your family, to your children. That's the main focus. Not necessarily exotic commentaries on the Agada. If that's what your children are into, great. But you have to connect with your children, and you have to give them over the story and the history and the continuation, the feelings, the passion for Yiddishkeit. This is the night that's the main focus. So one of the things they do is the children announce the different steps. Like Ezra, you know Kaddish?
Kaddish, wenn der Tati kommt daheim von Schule, macht bald Kiddish. Die Kinder sollen jetzt einschlafen und sagen dem Mann stand.
Pretty good.
When you
Translate.
when the father comes home from Shul, you make Kiddush really soon, and remember that the kids shouldn't go to sleep, and so that they can say Mount the Manashna.
Ask the Manashna. Don't frag the Manashna. That's the only correction. Very good. Some say gleich Kiddush. Oh, you said Baut Kiddush, but that's the term. I've seen that as well. Very good. You see what Ezzy just did? So the kid announced it, but you know what he did? He didn't say the whole thing what Ezzy said. He only said like this: Kaddish. When the father comes home from Shul, we make Kiddush as soon as possible. That's it. And the Shmuel Zayda is like, waiting, no, say the rest. He's like, that's all we learned. So he stopped the Seder and he went to the teacher's house. I'm sure he did it nicely. Didn't make anyone uncomfortable, but he said, we have to find what's going on over here. He's like, it can't be, no way. And he asked him, and he said, the teacher's like, oh, well, some of the kids were younger and not so bright, and I thought I'll make it easier to memorize. So I sort of shortened it and just say, you do Kiddush right away. He took out the ending that in order that the children shouldn't fall asleep, and they should ask Manishtana. So the Shmuel Zayda took the opportunity for brain with both families, I guess. Maybe he lived nearby. He's told them that everything is very deep. All the words are very, very multi-layered and meaningful. And Kiddush, we say Hashem should make Kiddush right away. He should sanctify us. We as Jewish people should take us out of Galus, by bringing Mashiach. That's the Kiddush we're waiting for Hashem to do on us. And we wanted to do it as soon as possible. And in order that the children shouldn't fall asleep. Galus, we know, is like a nightmare, right? And the Jews are getting more. Sleep means when you're asleep, you're not really productive. You're recharging, hopefully, but sometimes you could just waste some time with sleep and not accomplish anything, right? So we could get so distracted in Galus that we're no longer spiritually productive. We're not achieving anything. We're not doing anything important. We get so swept away and overwhelmed by the Galus, distractions of Galus, that we're going to stop asking even that we don't why we're here, why we don't deserve it anymore. Like, or why we're still in Galus. We're supposed to be complaining about it. Hashem wants us not to just get comfortable there and get distracted in Galus. He said, you can't just take out words because you think you're making it shorter. It's a very important prayer. So this is an example. Even it seems like a Yiddish custom people just say to get the kids to give instructions, which is very, very holy. Just that. I told you, the main point of Pesach is when you get the kids involved and so on. Okay.